politics now. And a new poll. But again, do we really trust these polls anymore? Do you trust them after what went on at the last election and Brexit and the American election? But if we do trust them, YouGov now saying for the first time that more people told them that they want a second referendum on Brexit than don't. 42% to 40%. 18% still didn't know. So these figures are close. But do they show a potential change in how we feel about Brexit after some very, very difficult negotiations? Well, to debate this poll, I'm joined this afternoon by Patrick Cristys, the investigative and breaking news reporter at Westmonster, and Lord Richard Newby, the former leader of the Lib Dems in the House of Lords and an ardent Remainer. So, Richard, do you think that this now shows you that you've got the public on side? You should totally overrule a democratic decision because you didn't like it and go ahead with the second referendum?
I think what this poll is, it's the latest in a series of polls that shows public opinions moving in direction of people having a say at the end of the Brexit process. And it's hardly undemocratic to say that people, rather than politicians, should have the final say on Brexit, is it?
But we did have our say on Brexit. This is what I don't understand, Richard. We had our say. There was a campaign. There was a vote. I get it. You didn't like the result, okay? I get that. You hated the result. But unfortunately, what you're now trying to do is so anti-democratic. I cannot get my head around it. Just because...
Well, I can't get my head around why you find it anti-democratic to give people a vote.
No, we had a referendum. We voted on Brexit. You said it was the be-all and end-all then.
No, we have a general election, and then we have another after period. And if people, well, sometimes it's after a year or two. It depends on the circumstances. The point is, it's not me now as some sort of voice in the wilderness saying that people should have a say. The majority of people in the country want to have a say.
No, they don't. Where's your evidence for that?
All right, the majority of people who have a view, who've expressed their view in this poll, say they want to say, don't they?
Richard, the polls predicted Brexit wrong.
Yeah, but...
So why is this poll right?
Well, why are you interviewing me about it if you don't think there's something in it?
Because you lot are not going to give up on this. You're clutching at straws. You're not going to give up. And I think it's the most anti-democratic thing that's ever gone on in this country in modern history.
Well, I'm not going to give up wanting people to have a final say on the most important issue facing the country.
They did. You lost.
They had their say 2 years ago about starting the Brexit process. They now say, the majority who have a view, say they would like to have a decisive vote on the result of the negotiations, which incidentally are offering a wholly different view of our relationship with the EU to the one that was offered at the time of the last referendum. But the key point is, and why I find you're finding it difficult, so surprising, how can it be undemocratic when a majority of people who have a view want to have a vote to give them that vote?
Well, look, just stand by, Richard. Let me bring Patrick in here at Westmonster. Patrick, how can we even trust this poll? Because remember, all the polls got Brexit wrong.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And there's one thing that's never ceased to amaze me in regards to these political pollsters, either the companies themselves or the people that get the crystal balls out and make these predictions. When they're wrong, they're never held to account. I appreciate the polling companies work off raw data, but that's error-ridden. The actual people that say Brexit will never happen, this, that, and the other, they're still working. They're still writing columns at The Independent. You know, I don't understand how. Can I just point out a couple of things? I've listened to what that gentleman said there. He's lying to you, I think, Dan, because the reason why he's lying to you is that he does not want the people's votes for the sake of democracy. What he wants is to stay in the European Union.
Well, let's let Richard respond. Are you lying, Richard?
Well, of course I'm not lying. I'm very open. I would like to stay in the European Union, but I believe that the people who should decide whether they agree with me or agree with the government are the people and not just MPs. Remember, you talk about polls not representing public opinion. The vast majority of MPs voted to remain. They were out of touch with public opinion last time. There's a danger that they could be out of public opinion.
Richard, we voted. This is what I don't. I just don't understand this. We voted. We voted.
Can I make it?
I actually find it. If it wasn't so serious, I would find this actually hilarious. Because if
I find it extraordinary that you find it extraordinary that people should have a final say. Parliament.
We had our say.
No, Parliament is going to be able to have a say as to whether it agrees with the deal or not. Would you prefer?
So every major referendum. Okay, so what you're now saying, because this would set a precedent. Okay, Patrick, you would set a. Sorry, Richard, you would set a big precedent here. If we had a second vote on Brexit, that would then mean that any time we had a referendum result, it would have to then be subject to a second referendum.
No, it wouldn't, because what's happening now...
So what's different? If you won, you wouldn't want a second one, presumably.
Why not best
Well,
of three?
compare it with Scottish independence, where you have a vote about whether you want independence or not, and the facts, broadly speaking, remain the same. In this case, when people voted, as you well know, for Brexit, they voted for a raft of reasons. A lot of them voted because they believed they were going to get back £350 million a week, because it says on the bus. People said it. We now know
Richard,
that's a lie.
Richard, do you remember how many people voted?
Yeah, I do.
How many?
There were 34 million people voted.
Well, over 33 million, 33.5 million people voted.
Yeah.
That is a huge, huge turnout. Everyone remembers casting those votes. Do you honestly meet people, and please tell me the truth here, do you honestly meet people in your day-to-day life who say that they voted for Brexit but now want to vote Remain?
Can I give you a category of people who are in that position?
Just tell me if you meet. Just answer the question. Do you meet people in your day-to-day life who tell you that?
I now live in Ripon, in North Yorkshire. Mm-hmm. Many farmers in Nidderdale voted to leave. They now say that they would not vote that way. So yes, I have met people who believe that, but it's not just my anecdotal chatting to folk. If you look at the poll, which is the basis of our conversation, the majority of people in that poll who had a view said if there were a referendum now, they'd vote to remain. Didn't
Patrick,
they?
I think this poll is rubbish.
Yeah, no, it is actually. But it is rubbish, and these polls should be taken with a pinch of salt, because what it is more of a rebellion about the completely awful job Theresa May is making of Brexit than a rebellion against the Brexit result itself, in my opinion. But I just want to make one thing very clear to Richard. I think that your listeners should understand this. People like Richard work very closely with groups that want a second vote, groups like People's Vote, groups like Best for Britain, who are actually, in a large way, funded a lot of the time by George Soros, who helps fund the European Union. And what they want a second vote on is an option between a no deal and Remain. And that is why they're trying to force through a no deal.
We don't.
Yes, you do. It's not untrue. And what you are thinking
I know what
will happen.
It's better than you know what I believe.
You've spoken a lot now. All I believe is that you believe is that a no deal versus a Remain scenario would result in an emphatic Remain victory. And I say to people that say that, I think you need to get out a bit more. And I do think it's very transparent, I'm afraid. You can cling your opinions
Richard,
on
what's your response? Richard, what's your response before we get to the news?
My view is that the vote should be between what the government negotiates and staying in the European Union, and I believe a majority of folk want it, and I believe if there were one, a majority of folk would vote to stay.
Richard, thank you very much. Former leader of the Lib Dems in the House of Lords, ardent Remainder, and Patrick Cristys, the breaking news and investigative reporter at Westmonster. Who do you agree with? Do you think Richard's right that we need another vote? And actually the majority of the country now remains. He's basing this off one poll. And can I just say, the poll result was very different just a week ago. I don't believe this poll for a second. 0344 499 1000, 0344 499 1000. Now, after the news, we're joined by Tim Parks, the author of a fascinating new book, Out of My Head on the Trail of Consciousness. We're going to go a little bit deep, and then we're going to talk about the weather, because that's stressing me out. But first, here's Kate Forsay with the news.